So at the end of the meeting, Don, we probably want to provide you folks with an update on Waihole because of the storms and impact.
Okay.
Yeah, because some of the pump is not working for the water system right now, and the road.
Denise, you know it's public now, huh?
Yeah, we probably want to provide you folks with an update on what.
Public.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, remind me. We'll update you, and I think it's important information just all around. Thank you.
And just to let everyone know, we're live. So Don, you can start whenever at 9. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, because we cannot start earlier, right?
Yeah, no. Sorry.
Yeah, but
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, everybody. It's 9 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Essa, can you take roll of the board members present?
Sure. I have Don Mende, Gary Mackler, Rona Fukumoto, Melvin Kahele, George Atta, Carol Riemann, and Roderick Becker.
Okay, thank you. So we have a quorum. So item 2 on the agenda, approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on February 11th, 2021. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
Make a motion, Don.
Thanks,
Second.
Mel. Thanks, George. Any discussion? Is there any additions and deletions that anyone has for the minutes? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. So for the executive session minutes, I guess, can I get a motion to approve? And if there's any discussion or changes to me, then I think we can go back into executive session. If not, we'll approve it in open session. So can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion, Don.
Thanks.
Second.
Thanks, George. Is there any discussion, additions, or deletions to the executive session minutes of February 11th? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 3, discussions for the meeting. So item 3A is to approve an extension to resolution number 106, which provides for official intent with respect to the issuance of Hula May multifamily tax exempt revenue bonds for the Kaloko Heights Affordable Housing Project located in Kailua Kona, Hawaii, TMK 373-009-032. Can I get a motion, please?
Approve.
Thanks, George.
Second, Don.
Thanks, Mel.
So good morning, members. Before we get started, I would like to introduce some new members of our finance branch. You all know Jocelyn Iwamasa, who's going to be doing most of the presentations for finance. But along with that, we have Chris Oakes, who joins HHFDC from Stanford Carr Development. He was the Vice President of Acquisition and Development, and being an applicant for financing now, he's on the other side and can see all the things that he never was able to see on this side now. So welcome, Chris. And along with Chris, we have Jamie. If Jamie can come into the camera, that'd be great. Jamie Aki from First Hawaiian Bank. She was the Assistant Vice President of Loans, Mortgages. So she's very, very familiar with processing mortgage and loans. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, welcome aboard.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. The subject for action requests a 12-month extension to March 31st, 2022 to issue the bonds for the Coloco Heights Affordable Housing Project. This is the fourth extension for the project. The project will be a new constructed 100 unit, including one manager's unit, rental facility for family households at or below 30, 50, and 60% AMGI in Kailua Kona on the island of Hawaii. Improvements consist of 6 two-story garden-style buildings and 1 community center. On September 14, 2017, the HHFDC Board of Directors approved an intended tax-exempt issuance of up to $23.1 million from the Hulame Multifamily Bond Program and up to $1.67 in annual federal 4% LIHTC for 10 years and approximately $1.67 annual state LIHTC for 5 years, and a rental housing revolving fund loan up to approximately $7.6 million. On December 12, 2019, the HHFDC Board of Directors approved an increase of the intended tax-exempt issuance up to $27 million from $23.1 million. An increase in annual federal and state LIHTC up to $1.69 million from $1.67 million. Requests for an extension are evaluated on 3 basic milestones: site control, zoning approvals, and securing financing commitments. The project has site control through an agreement to lease the site to the general partner, Hawaii Island Community Development Corporation, which has fee simple ownership of the site. Zoning approvals. The project continues to make progress. The project has obtained the 201H zoning exemption approval in January 2017. State final environmental assessment and the finding of no significant impact, or FONSI, was published in the environmental notice July 13, 2019. The federal FONSI was accepted by the County of Hawaii in September of 2019, and the authority to use the grant funds for home and HTF was approved in October 2019. Final approval from the Disability and Community Access Board was in February 2021. The awardee continues to work on the approval of the building permits, and as part of the review process, the State Historic Preservation Division, or SHPD, requested that the previous archaeological inventory survey be updated. The prior archaeological survey was conducted and approved by SHPD in 2005 before the applicant acquired the property. The updated survey discovered an additional site that may have been a habitation site or agriculture heiau, an additional burial site. Both require preservation. The review and approval of the burial treatment and site plan will take approximately 6 to 9 months. And not in the project, but most recently, we've been keeping in touch with the developers. They did have SHPD accepted the updated archaeological survey, and they anticipate a presentation to the April Burial Council meeting. For financing commitments, the awardee continues to work with Bank of Hawaii on the sale of the tax-exempt bonds, National Equity Fund on the syndication of the federal and state LIHTC, and the County of Hawaii on the closing of the Home and National Housing Trust Fund, and the 75 project-based Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher. The recommendation can be found on page 5 of the for action. Staff supports the request for an extension based on the progress made. Staff is available for questions, as well as Mr. Keith Kato and Mr. Jeremy McCullough of the development team.
All right, thanks. Does anybody have any questions on this?
Chair, I have a question I believe this is for Keith. Keith, regarding financing commitments, do these delays put at risk the Home and National Trust Fund monies for this project?
No. Yeah, basically, we have, I believe, 5 years to get things committed, and we're well within that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? If not, I'll call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 3B, excuse me, which is to approve an extension to the Rental Housing Revolving Fund Project Letter of Intent for the Coloco Heights Affordable Housing Project located in Kailua Kona, Hawaii, TMK 373-009-032. Can I get a motion, please?
A second. Yes, second.
Thank you.
The subject for action requests a 12-month extension to March 31st, 2022 for the Rental Housing Revolving Fund Letter of Intent for the Coloco Heights Affordable Housing Project. This is the fourth extension of the letter of intent for the revolving fund. This is the same project in the previous four actions, so I'll skip the details as they are the same. The recommendation can be found on page 5 of the four action. Staff supports the request for an extension based on the progress made. Staff is available for questions as well as Mr. Keith Apple and Mr. Jeremy McMillan.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item 3C, which is to approve an extension to resolution number 140, which provides for official intent with respect to the issuance of Hula May multifamily tax exempt revenue bonds for the D.E. Thompson Village project located in Eva Beach, Oahu, TMK 191046088. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion, Don.
Thanks. Thanks, Mel. Second? Thanks, Carol.
The subject for action requests a 12-month extension to March 31st, 2022 to issue the bonds for the D.E. Thompson Village project. This is the first extension for the project. The project is an existing 84-unit, which includes one manager unit, rental facility for elderly households at or below 60% AMGI in Eva Beach on the island of Oahu. The project currently has a USDA 515 loan and a project-based USDA 521 rental subsidy for all units. The awardee will assume the USDA 515 loan and will execute a new USDA 521 subsidy agreement so that the existing tenants will continue to receive rental subsidy. Improvements consist of 9 one-story and 1 two-story buildings for a total of 10 residential buildings and 1 community building. On March 12, 2020, the HHFDC Board of Directors approved an intended tax-exempt issuance amount up to $8 million from the Hula May Multifamily Bond Program and up to approximately $536,000 in annual federal 4% low-income housing tax credits for 10 years and up to approximately $536,000 annual state low-income housing tax credits for 5 years. Requests for extensions are evaluated on 3 basic milestones: site control, zoning approvals, and securing financing commitments. Site control: the awardee has site control through a purchase and sale agreement with the Eva Housing Foundation and is working with the City of Honolulu on finalizing the assignment and the extension of the ground lease. For zoning approvals, the project received final approval from the Disability and Communication Access Board, or DCAB, in November 2019. The building permits were approved on February 19, 2021. For financing commitments, the awardee continues to work with First Hawaiian Bank on the sale of the tax-exempt bonds and CREA on the syndication of the federal and state low-income housing tax credits. The project is currently on bond call and is working towards a closing for next month. The recommendation can be found on page 5 of the 4 action. Staff supports the request for an extension based on the progress made. Staff is available for questions as well as Ms. Makani Eva, Lara DeVries, and Ms. Boyle.
Right, thank you. I just wait one thing before we start on the question for this. That just if you're not currently speaking, can you put yourself on mute? Sometimes we're picking up some background noise. Thank you. So any questions? No, nobody has any questions for this project? Actually, I don't either. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item number 3D. This item is to approve a request from the developer to increase the low-income housing tax credit reservation for the Kaiaulu Waikoloa project located in Waikoloa, Hawaii, TMK 368003028. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion, Don.
Thanks, Mel.
Second.
Thanks, George.
The subject for action requests an increase to the pre-existing low-income housing tax credit reservation for the Kaiaulu O Waikoloa project. The project will be a newly constructed 60-unit rental facility for family households at or below 30, 40, and 60% AMGI. Improvements consist of 8 two-story buildings and 1 community center, reinforced concrete slab on grade foundation with wood framing, fiber cement siding, and asphalt reflective shingle roof. The project shall have project-based Section 8 rental subsidies for 15 units. On January 12, 2017, the HHFDC Board of Directors approved an intended tax-exempt issuance of approximately $12.36 million from the Hulame Multifamily Bond Program and up to approximately $964,000 in annual federal and state 4% low-income housing tax credits, and also a rental housing revolving fund up to $9.9 million. On May 14, 2020, the HHFDC Board of Directors approved an increase of the intended tax-exempt interest amount up to approximately $19.8 million, and an increase in the annual federal and state tax credits up to $1.39 million. The project experienced delays as the awardee worked with the federal and state government agencies to address the new guidance regarding building in the Waikoloa Maneuver formerly used defense site. On January 18, 2017, 6 days after the project received the initial award of funding from HHFDC, HUD issued notice SD 2017-01 suspending funding on projects located in the formerly used defense site that have ground disturbing activities until the Department of Health issued a site closure letter or similar documentation indicating the property was safe for residential use. In March of 2019, the DOH prepared the Area Emergency Hazard Management Plan that provided guidance on how to advise the public about the possible presence of unexploded ordinances in the zone and presented measures the landowners could take that would help mitigate the remaining residual risks relating to the unexploded ordinances. The awardee coordinated with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to clear the property, and in April 2019, issued a remedial action report that was submitted to the Department of Health. The Department of Health issued the conditional no further action with institutional controls determination, which was acknowledged by the awardee in May of 2019. Since then, the project has worked diligently to obtain approvals from the state EA, DCAB, and building permits, and are currently on bond calls with a projected closing in April 2021. On February 17, 2021, the awardee submitted a request to increase the award of annual federal and state low-income housing tax credits to approximately $1.8 million as the project is eligible for the new minimum 4% housing credit rate established by the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, which allows the project to qualify for additional credits based on their existing projected eligible basis. The budget has not increased from the prior for action approved by the board in May 2020. Based on the new minimum 4% housing credit rate, the project qualifies for an additional $421,299,000 in annual federal and state low-income housing tax credit. The additional equity allows the project to reduce other permanent sources and helps with the financial stability. The additional low-income housing tax credits equates to approximately $3.8 million in additional equity that the project will use to reduce the senior permanent loan by 870,000 and the RHRF loan by 600,000. This will allow the project to carry less debt. They can forego the CDBG funding in the amount of 800,000 and the related party loan in the amount of 512,000. Both the CDBG and the related party loan was not part of the original sources. When the project experienced the budget increases and delays due to the unexploded ordinances issue, they had to come up with more funding, and these were the two options that they had added to their sources. Currently, the CDBG requirements will delay the transaction. Decreases also the developer's deferred developer fee by approximately 1.06 million. As with the CDBG and the related party loan, the deferred developer fee was increased when the project experienced budget increases due to the delay caused by the new guidance on the unexploded ordinances. The developer fee provides additional contingency for the project. Exhibit C highlights the changes in the financing sources. Staff recommends approval of the project's request as the eligible basis and layering analysis indicates that the project qualifies for the increased amount of 4% low-income housing tax credits. Staff is available for questions as well as Mr. Doug Bigley, Mr. Grant Bigley, Mr. Mig Sands, and Mr. Randy Hu of the development team.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions? No, I just have one regarding the cost. What is the main reason for the cost increases?
Also for right now on this last budget from May till now, there's no cost increase. It's just the eligible basis allows them to qualify for more.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Alrighty. If there's no other questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 3E. To approve a request from the developer to increase the low-income housing tax credit reservation for the Halewai Olu Senior Residence project located in Honolulu, Oahu, TMK 117006012.
Motion done.
Thanks, Mel.
Second.
Thanks, George.
Aloha, Chair, members, distinguished members of the board. This subject for action requests an increase to the pre-existing low-income housing tax credit reservation for the Halewai Olu Senior Residence project. The project will be newly constructed 156 unit rental facility for elderly households earning at or below 30%, 60%, up to 80% of the area median gross income. Improvements shall consist of a 17-story residential tower consisting of 13 floors of apartments over 4 floors with a lobby, community room, commercial space, as well as 2 floors of parking. On February 14th of 2019, the HHFDC Board of Directors approved an intended tax-exempt issuance of up to approximately $43.55 million from the Hula May Multifamily Bond Program, as well as approximately $2.94 million in annual federal 4% low-income housing tax credits for up to 10 years, as well as $2.494 million in annual state low-income housing tax credits for 5 years. This is in conjunction with a rental housing revolving fund loan up to $41.11 million. On August 13th, 2020, the HHFDC Board of Directors approved an increase of the intended tax-exempt issuance for the Hula May multifamily bonds to approximately $48 million. Also, in conjunction, an increase in annual federal and state 4% low-income housing tax credits to approximately 3.05 million. Based on the new minimum 4% housing tax credit rate established by the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, the project qualifies for an additional $979,000 in annual federal and state low-income housing tax credits. The additional equity allows the project to reduce other permanent sources, including the rental housing revolving fund, by which $8,845,000 will be no longer required, and we can use and deploy on other projects. Staff recommends approval of the project's request as the eligible basis and the layering analysis indicates that the project does qualify for the increased amount of the 4% low-income housing tax credit. Should there be any questions, staff is available, as well as members of the development team, Ms. Karen Sedan. We have Benjamin Egger, as well as Quester Law.
All right, thank you. Excuse me. Is there any questions? No? If hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to excuse me, number 3F. This is to approve one Honolulu Habitat for Humanity or other successor entity approved by the executive director as an eligible developer pursuant to section 15-307-24 Hawaii Administrative Rules, and 2, the negotiation and execution of a development agreement, a ground lease, and an interim declaration of land use restrictive covenants with the eligible developer. 3, negotiation and execution of a ground lease to selected qualified residents pursuant to section 201H-32 Hawaii Revised Statutes, and 4, request for approvals from the board of Land and Natural Resources relating to the planning, development, construction, mortgage, creation of a condominium property regime, recording of an interim declaration of land use restrictive covenants, and leasing for the Lanikila house lot project located at 1741 Lanikila Avenue, Honolulu, Oahu, TMK 117041002. Can I get a motion? Can I get a motion, please?
Motion, Don.
Thanks, Mel. A second?
Second.
Thanks, Gar. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. My name is Albert Palmer. I work in the development section. So the parcel in question at 1741 Lanakila Avenue is one of several small parcels owned by the state, which were previously identified as potentially suitable for affordable housing development. In 2007, HHFDC received a set aside from DLNR and published an RFP for the development of this and other parcels, but did not receive any responses to the RFP, and so the set aside was canceled. In 2018, Honolulu Habitat for Humanity contacted DLNR inquiring about using the parcel for its self-help housing program. HHFDC and DLNR staff met and discussed the possibility of HHFDC managing the project and administering the affordability. On March 14, 2019, HHFDC's Board of Directors authorized HHFDC to seek control of the property either by set aside via executive order or by quitclaim deed. In discussions internally and with DLNR, it was decided that a set aside would be pursued. The set aside request would be submitted following the approval of this 4 action. Habitat's development plan for the project is to develop two 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, single-family houses under its self-help program. The target AMI would be between 30% and 60%, and a condominium property regime would be created on the parcel with 1 unit for each home. Habitat will fund the project using home funds obtained from the city and county of Honolulu and from its own equity. Habitat is only seeking HHFDC's assistance in securing the land from DLNR and is not seeking any financial assistance or 201H exemptions. The parcel in question is approximately 12,558 square feet and is a roughly rectangular flag lot located in the center of an existing residential area. It is vacant and has no prior record of conveyance or development. Access to the parcel is via the flag portion of the lot, which has a right-of-way width of approximately 10 feet, and thus the parcel likely cannot be developed into any more than the 2 units currently proposed. A location map is attached to Exhibit A, and a copy of the proposed conceptual site plan and building plans are attached as Exhibit B. Honolulu Habitat is a 501c3 nonprofit housing organization which operates under the umbrella of Habitat for Humanity International. Habitat partners with qualifying families who cannot afford a traditional mortgage to help them build and purchase homes using a self-help housing model. Qualified residents put in sweat equity towards the construction of their homes and make low, no interest monthly mortgage payments towards the full ownership of their homes with mortgages held by Habitat. Habitat has developed over 90 self-help projects on the island of Oahu and has partnered with both HHFDC and DHHL in the past. The estimated total project cost is approximately $357,400 per unit for a total of $714,800. The overall cost of construction is kept low through the use of grants and in-kind donations of materials and labor. The project schedule you see is an estimate which may vary depending on the timing of outside approvals such as DLNR approval and HIPP approval. Habitat presented the project to Neighborhood Board number 14 on October 15th, 2019 and received no comments or questions, and the Neighborhood Board did not vote on the project. The project falls within the criteria of section 11-200.115C10 HAR, which provides that preparation of an environmental assessment is not required because it is affordable housing, with the only trigger being the use of state lands or funds. A notice of exemption determination was published in the March 8th, 2021 issue of the environmental notice. HHFDC finds the following for the project: that Honolulu Habitat for Humanity or other successor entity approved by the executive director is an eligible developer pursuant to section 15-307-24 Hawaii Administrative Rules, that the project proposal meets the minimum requirements pursuant to section 15-307-26 HAR, and that the proposed project is primarily designed for lower cost housing at or below 140% AMI pursuant to sections 15-307-26A3C, 15-307-27, and 15-307-52 HAR. Staff's recommendation is that the board approve the project as discussed in the 4 actions, and I would like to open up to questions. And we have Jim Murphy on from Habitat for Humanity as well.
All right. Thank you, Albert. Any questions from the board members?
Is there going to be
Oh, go ahead, Bill. Go
yeah, I
ahead,
was wondering if they're going to be like a subdivision, or just going to be kept two houses on the lot.
So unfortunately, because of the narrow access, it is not possible to subdivide. So instead, they will do a condominium property regime.
Okay.
Chair, I have a question. I think this one is for Habitat's representative. My question is, who's providing the permanent financing to the Habitat families for this project? Who do you expect will do that?
So we've received a home grant through the city's home program, and we've actually secured the grant and signed the contract for those funds. So a lot of the construction funds will come from that home grant. The remaining funds will come from Habitat's reserve. And then once the house is complete, Habitat will, as part of our model, hold the mortgage on the house with the family and service the mortgage throughout the life of the mortgage.
Okay, thank you. And I have a second question, and that's regarding the per unit cost breakdown, the $357,000 per unit. Does that include the sweat equity? Is that exclusive of the sweat equity?
Well, the sweat equity allows us to reduce the cost. It's part of their mission.
Okay.
One of the things to note about the way we budget is we can't assume in-kind donations. We worked very hard, so if we get roofing material donated, we can take that cost off the house. If I get something like that, I can reduce the cost. So a lot of times our budgets come in high and we bring it down. So ultimately saving home funds for other uses and then also reducing the cost of the house for the family.
Well, thank you. That's good to know, because I see where your target is 30 to 60% of median income. And I was trying to match that up with this per unit cost, but it sounds like you're thinking ahead of that already. And
yeah, and this also has some challenges because we do have to CPR the lot. So there's some additional costs with building homes in this lot that we don't see in some of our other lots.
okay, thank you.
All right, thanks. Any other questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
So for the next item, I actually want to take it out of order, which is item number 4, before the last item in 3, and it's to approve the recommendations of the housing finance program subcommittee. I just want to make sure that because of the time frame where this needs to get out, that the board can go over it and before, just so we don't lose quorum, just in case.
Morning, Chair, members of the board. The subcommittee presented its findings and recommendations at the last board meeting in February. Just real quickly, the subcommittee focused on 2 policy areas. One is to speed up the delivery of rental housing, given the great need for affordable rental housing and the protracted time period that it's been taking us to deliver housing from the time we approve it to the time a project is completed. The second policy area was just to more efficiently use HHFDC's resources, given the large amount of money that has been committed to projects and the numerous extensions for those projects, and just really wanting to better leverage and utilize the resources. The findings were summarized, were actually presented on pages 1 to 4 of the subcommittee's report. And then the discussion and recommendations were presented on pages 4 to 8 of the report. The recommendations were to make amendments to certain policies, minimum thresholds, and criteria point system. The subcommittee also stressed that they want to allow staff to propose additional revisions to the QAP if they're aligned with the overall policies of speeding up the delivery and more efficiently using our financing resources. So again, we're seeking approval of the recommendations of the Housing Finance Program Subcommittee.
Oh my God, I can't even believe they're doing this.
Oh. Okay. Janet, were you done?
I'm done, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Available for questions. Yeah, I saw Joelle. Yeah.
So, any questions from the board members? No? All right, so I guess all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so going back to item 3G, information on and discussion on general terms and conditions of ground lease extensions for affordable rental projects located on land owned by or set aside to the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation. I think this one we want to go into executive session, right? So,
Chair, may I suggest, I was hoping to have present the floor discussion publicly and then suggest that the board enter into executive session right after I'm done with the short presentation.
okay, all
It's
right.
okay with you.
Yep.
HHFDC owns in fee simple or has management control through set aside land underlying 24 affordable rental housing projects located across the state of Hawaii. These projects are ground leased by various for-profit and non-profit developers. Generally, the project ground leases had initial terms of between 51 years and 75 years. And the rent for all of these projects, except for one, I believe, is a nominal $1 per year lease rent. These favorable terms help the developers to obtain mortgage financing and to reduce carrying costs of the projects, ensuring that they would be financially feasible at affordable rental rates. There's a schedule of these 24 projects attached as Exhibit A to your for action. Because the owner's interests in these projects are leasehold in nature, the ground lease terms must periodically be extended to secure new financing for major renovation programs. If a ground lease is not extended, then the owner may eventually have to surrender the project to HHFDC. In those cases, it's likely that we would get the projects back with substantial capital needs. As you'll see in Exhibit A, to date, we have had 3 owners request and receive and execute extended ground lease terms. And those were for acquisition rehabilitation projects. And for those projects, we've continued to charge an annual lease rent of $1 per year. I just wanted to note that in addition to those 24 rental properties, we have a handful of, I guess we can call them commercial ground leases, where we lease to nonprofits also at $1 per year. A couple of examples: the Waipahu Adult and Child Daycare Project on Oahu. There's the Montessori School that's adjacent to the Leilani Apartments project in Kona that we sold a couple of years ago. I mentioned that one because I will be bringing that matter to this board probably in the next month or two. That would be relating to a new ground lease. Our current form of ground lease is attached as Exhibit B to the for action. It's based on the 2016 Kamana Elderly amended and restated ground lease. And it's important to note that when we reached agreement with that particular ground lessee on the extended term, there were 2 significant lease terms that were added to the lease form. One is that in return for extending the ground lease at continued $1 per year annual rate, we have the authority to actually approve, in most cases, net proceeds to the owner that result from a sale or refinancing the project. And again, the full language is in Section A of the lease that's attached as Exhibit B. Additionally, there's a requirement that the ground lease rent increase to a market rate from $1 per year in the event that there's the unlikely event that somehow the affordability restrictions that we have tied to the property are wiped out, say by a court in a foreclosure action. So what we wanted to do today is actually talk about our historical practice in extending these ground leases, and then explore a couple of alternatives going forward, or a couple options going forward, and get the board's feedback. So there's a case to be made for continuing to offer ground lease extensions at a nominal lease rent. It's consistent with our mission. Our mission is to increase and preserve the supply of workforce and affordable housing statewide by providing leadership, tools, and resources to facilitate housing development. The availability of state land for lease at a nominal rent of, say, $1 per year is an important tool that we have. And I think a case can be made that, since we're also in the preservation business, agreeing to extend ground leases at also at a nominal rent is maybe worthwhile. The $1 per year ground rent for an extended term may also be necessary to ensure that a project remains financially feasible. Again, if ground lease is unable to be extended at a financially feasible rent, then we have the risk that critical affordable housing supply will be taken off market. There's also a case to be made for charging a more meaningful lease rent for these lease extensions. The most important one, I think, is that by its very nature, extending a ground lease term, it creates value for the lessee. Essentially, you're transferring to the lessee a period of cash flows in the future that they didn't already have a contractual right to. That number can be calculated. We can ask or obtain ourselves an appraisal of the leasehold interest in the property on an as-is basis. So say if there are 30 years left in the lease on that basis, or if the owner or the buyer is asking, coming in and asking for an extension, an appraisal as if the lease were extended. And then it's a simple math problem to conclude the appraised value of the lease extension, the extended lease term, I'm sorry. We'll note, however, that although we may not have, well, actually we didn't receive any meaningful monetary consideration when we agreed to extend the 3 ground leases that we did extend, we did get something in return. We got the housing market, or the housing market in the affordable sector got renovated units kept into the rental stock. And we also got an extended affordability period through those extensions. However, there are plenty of examples of developers buying land at market value or leasing land at market value to a lesser extent, where they are still able to develop affordable rental housing that's economically feasible. I guess I would point out, though, that I think we all expect that in cases where we offer state land at a nominal rent of, say, $1 per year, we're expecting to get a little bit more bang for a buck. So more units, perhaps, or being able to reach deeper down the affordability ladder. And on the lease, I'm sorry, on the appraisal approach, I guess I just point out that while it's an accepted methodology, when you're trying to predict cash flows out, say 30, 40, 50 years from now, the present value becomes very highly sensitive to the growth rates and the discount rates used by the appraiser. So highly sensitive to appraiser assumptions. So should we consider extending lease terms and getting more than a nominal lease rent of $1 per year? There are a couple of options, or actually 3 options. We could ask or require a recurring annual rent that would help the agency's cash flow from a budget standpoint. We also have plans to more actively manage our lease fee rental project portfolio, and it would help to pay for the costs involved in that. And I have an example of what that might look like in the second paragraph of, let's see, section 3E2 of the 4 action on page 3. So that's really the second option. 3E1 was to take a lease premium upfront. 3E2 is to not take it upfront, but build it into the annual lease rent. And then we also have the option of doing some sort of hybrid where we ask for a lease premium upfront and also ongoing lease rent. Finally, I'd like to point out that should we going forward receive a rent that's again above the nominal rent that we've been charging historically, and deem it to be a satisfactory monetary compensation for our ground lease extensions, then I think that we probably want to go back and revisit Section A of the ground lease form, which is included in the Kamana agreement attached as Exhibit A. That's the section that essentially gives us a measure of control over proceeds to the developer or owner through realized through a refinancing or sale of the property. So with that laid out for you, Chair, now is the time that I suggest that we go into executive session and discuss the matter further.
Okay, so I guess can I get a motion? So the Board of Directors of the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corp anticipates convening in an executive session pursuant to section 92-5 A3 Hawaii Revised Statutes HRS to deliberate concerning the authority of persons designated by the board to negotiate the acquisition of public property or during the conduct of such negotiations and section 92.5 A4 HRS to consult the board attorney on questions or issues regarding the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities as it relates to this matter. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion, Don.
Thanks, Mel. Can you get a second?
Second.
Thanks, George. All in favor?
Aye.
We are in executive sessions. Essa, can you?
Yeah,
Put it-
hold on.
Okay.
Janice. Yeah, Chris.
All right, is everybody here? All right, thank you, everybody. I just want to just summarize that. So we came to a conclusion that staff will work on some policies and procedures as it relates to renewals and the general terms for the ground lease extensions, and come back at a later date.
Thank you, Chair. We appreciate the feedback.
Okay, moving on to item number 5A, information on HHFDC's maintenance responsibilities in the villages of Kapolei. So I think this one we're going into executive session too, right? Okay, so can I get a motion to move into executive session? So the Board of Directors of the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation anticipates convening an executive session pursuant to Section 92(5)(a)(4) HRS to consult with the board attorney on questions or issues regarding the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, liabilities as it relates to this matter.
Motion, Don.
Thanks, Mel.
Second.
Thanks, Gary. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're going back into executive session.
Okay, hold on while I transfer. Oh. Oh, sorry. Janice stays too,
She wants to. Fine.
or no need?
Yeah, she can.
All right, thanks. We are back in regular session and my camera still doesn't work. So moving on to item 5, the overview from the executive director.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, board members. You have my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. The one thing that I did want to highlight for you is that during the storm and high winds that we've been experiencing, we did have a break in the water line for Waihole Valley. So it is a bit of a concern. The break in the pipe was between the wells and the reservoir, not between the reservoir and the distribution pipe. So that's the good news. The bad news is the pump to pump the water is not working. The pump control rooms were flooded out. The road to get to the control room was washed away by the stream that took over. The reservoir has or had enough water for 4 or 5 days. I saw another drop today. So I'm going to look at Dean for providing an update because there is concern for the community to have water up there. So if Dean, if you could give us a brief update. And I really want to thank Dean and Carrie Ann. Dean drove out there in the storm to go view the site and work with Dunewood, the servicer. So I really want to thank you, and for Carrie Ann staying up all night to work on the problem. Go ahead, Dean.
Yes, as Denise mentioned, on when was it, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Tuesday night, there was a severe flooding in the Waihole area, which affected the Waihole water system. So the damage that we know of is that there are at least one crack in the pipe between the pumps and the reservoir. So our contractor fixed that yesterday. They're waiting for the glue basically to cure, and they'll be testing that pipe to then checking for more leaks. Of concern also is that the pump control room was flooded. The control room is next to a stream, and with all the boulders and debris that fell, the stream diverted and was actually flowing through the pump house. And as of yesterday, it was still flowing through the pump house. So there was some concern that the controls were damaged. And if they were damaged, we're not sure how long it will take to repair the controls. So that is the concern now, is how soon can we get the pumps operational? Hopefully, if there's no significant damage, we can get it running today. If not, you'll have to see how long it will take to do the repairs. And the fallback is that if water cannot be provided to residents, right now there's enough water for maybe 3 more days, then we will start asking the Board of Water Supply to provide water tanks for the valley. And that we've already reached out to the Board of Water Supply, and they're going to be able to provide the service.
I just want to add that the Board of Water Supply has already put us on notice that they want us to be self-sustaining and may not be able to help us in the future. So this is like our second warning from them, because they feel they don't have capacity to even service their own system. So that's part of our challenge right now.
If I may, but in fairness to the Board of Water Supply, they did agree to provide water if needed in this current situation. And I think they're considering tapping into a hydrant to provide the water. So like Denise said, initially Board of Water Supply wanted us to be self-sufficient. This was like months ago when we negotiated, discussed it with them. But when we called them yesterday, Ernie Lau was amenable to provide his staff and, you know, provide water for the residents out there. So just want to make sure it's an accurate depiction of their position. So just want to see that.
But they did remind Francis
Yes.
that we need to be more sustainable and may not be able to. So luckily they did come through or will be there. We just don't know what will happen in the future. So there needs to be some sort of a plan. Number one, we need to expedite the repair of the water system. And I know Dean is looking into that, but we really need to expedite the repair of the system and then look at investing in the new system for Waihole Valley. The problem is, of course, the water rates don't pay for any of that. So another dream. Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that.
Happy to take any questions.
Does anybody else have any questions regarding the executive directors? All right. I forgot to mention when we first started the meeting, but I just wanted to say now that that we received no request for verbal testimony for this meeting. So I was going to say it at the beginning of the meeting, but I forgot. So I guess if there's nothing else, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thanks, George. Can I get a second?
Don, I got a question before we second.
Yeah.
The letter that I received, the March 8th letter, aren't we going to be addressing it regarding the Waimanalo villages?
What would be the right? Because it's not agendized, right? So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was sent it, so I wasn't sure whether you was going to be discussing it. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, what would be a good time? The next meeting or?
Yeah, sure. We can bring it up in the next meeting. Just in general, I think the issue you're referring to, Director Kahele, is that about the farm animals and the noise?
Yeah, I received the letter. Yeah, apparently there's yeah. You got the letter. It's about the farm animals making too much noise.
I just think as part of the director's report, we can speak about it generally, that we did get a complaint. The issue, I believe, is that the city has an ordinance that prevents, they have a limit of the number of animals that can be kept on the premise. However, way back in the day, there was an exemption in the 201H to that for that area. And the challenge is with that exemption, it doesn't apply to that area. So there's an unlimited number of roosters or chickens that they can have. What may be part of the resolution is for the constituents to work with or advocate to their council member to remove that exemption from the county ordinance so that they can file a complaint and take action. So that may be part of the solution, is having the constituents reach out to their council member and seeking a change in the ordinance to remove the exemption. I don't know, Dean, did you want to add to that? I don't know if Chris is on.
Long background is that the Waimanalo village was built in 1975 and by Hawaii Housing Authority. Hawaii Housing Authority sought an exemption from the city to allow farm animals to basically retain the rural character of the area. But so the city right now has an ordinance which limits households to keeping no more than 2 chickens per household. That ordinance doesn't apply to Waimanalo village because of the exemption that was granted to the project. So there are some households in the village that have large numbers of fowl on their property. And the city has said that they will not enforce the ordinance because we got the exemption, so it's our problem to deal with. So there are conditions in the lease which some of them require that chickens are kept, they only be kept for personal use and consumption. There are some laws which are not allowed to have chickens at all, but it becomes an enforcement issue for us. So the better solution might be to have the constituents work with their council member to amend the original approval to remove that exemption for farm animals.
So I have one comment on this suggestion perhaps is, I looked on Google Earth to see the proximity of the single family homes to the project site, and it's about 30 yards. It's pretty close. And there was mention in the letter about a buffer zone, although it was not defined as mentioned as part of granting of the exemption. That seems to me like something that could be looked at again, maybe the imposition of a buffer zone rather than a complete removal of the exemption as an idea to consider. Just something I was thinking about with that.
If I might add, when this complaint came in, I pretty much immediately knew which property it was. There is a buffer zone. There is a large, 13, 16 acre buffer lot. But it's a very irregular in shape and it's jagged, and it just so happens that the complainant's households are kind of, they're in the point of the buffer zone area where they're kind of closest to the action.
Yeah.
I was invited to attend the meeting of the Waimanalo Village Residents Corporation Board of Directors next, I believe in about a week and a half, to discuss this matter, possible short-term solutions. Dean's talking about a little bit longer lead item and a permanent solution relating to the exemption that was granted, but we're hoping we can do something more near term.
If I may, again, my understanding is that the complaint was about the noise that was there, not about the number of chickens that the neighbors had. So getting into the exemption and the number of pets or animals may not be the direction to take, but it's more of the noise. That's my understanding what the complaint was about. So, it may make a difference how the complaint was worded or what we're pursuing about the complaint.
But my suggestion is, Chris, since you're going out there, find out really what the complaint is about. And is it more of a state action? Because 201H, changing that will not going to happen until next session, if anything, and that's a process. Council meets year round. They have a better chance of changing for the council, and they have to go through that process. So my suggestion would be, that is an option that residents can pursue with their council member.
So yeah, I did go out in the past month or two to meet with the complainant. So it's the noise problem. They're close to the lot in question, and really the volume of the roosters there is pretty. It's excessive, and so that's creating a lot of noise. But yeah, I will be meeting with them again after the Community Association Board meeting on the 21st.
And then can you work with them to see if that's something that the residents want to pursue is county council action?
Yes. Yep.
And then let me know. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chris. Yeah, I guess if you don't mind reporting back to the board and what your findings are, I guess.
Will do. Yep.
Thanks. Okay, so I guess is there anything else?
That's it, Chair. Happy to answer any further questions. Thanks, Mel, for that question.
Yeah.
That did come in.
Yeah, thanks for reminding us.
Thank you.
So I guess
Motion.
I think Gary motioned, so you can second.
Oh, second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be safe out there.
Everybody, have a good weekend.